This is Blake Dickus.
Hi there.
In a lot of ways, he's just your typical 10-year-old boy. A lover of sports, video games, and making his family laugh.
Who you're looking at?
Hey, I'm looking at the birthday boy.
This is Blake's stepmom, Chynna.
Thanks, Chynna, for decorating the place for Blake's birthday.
Okay, Sean, thank you for helping me.
At 26, she is a natural beauty, inside and out. A career-driven woman and a missionary for her church.
He's got the video camera.
Blake and Chynna both shared an uncanny ability to light up any room with their smiles. And yet, someone murdered them both in cold blood. It was a hot Monday in July. No one in the town of Franklin, Indiana would ever forget. Blake Dickus had just finished spending the weekend with his dad and Chynna and was preparing to go back to his mom's.
We planned to go to the movies when I got off work.
And he was really excited at the time. He's like, oh, can we stop and get some candy too? And I'm like, yes.
It was a promise she could not keep.
I would say maybe about 30 minutes later, Chynna called me back and she asked me, she goes, would you mind if I keep Blake longer so that he could have lunch with his dad? Because Chynna was supposed to take Blake over to my mom's. I said, sure, that's not a problem.
Simple words that now haunt her.
I wish I would have said no, but, you know, don't think anything would be wrong with, you know, him having lunch with his dad.
The timeline of what happened next is now a part of official police record.
Sean Dickus, husband of Chynna Dickus, the father of Blake Dickus, was home that day. He had lunch with them, and that was at approximately 12:45, I believe. He left at about 1:45, went back to work.
Soon after that, Christina receives a call from her mother.
My mom called me at work and she was like, you know, Christina, I told Chynna I would meet her, you know, after I got done running some errands, and she's not answering. And I'm like, call Sean. And I never heard back from my mom.
After work, movie tickets in hand, Christina arrives at her parents' house.
And my mom was like, well, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm here to get Blake. And she's like, Christina, I called and I told you I couldn't get a hold of him. And then I become mad.
Feeling annoyed, Christina drives to her ex-husband's home, expecting to find an apologetic Chynna, or maybe a lame excuse. Anything but what she actually found.
I could hardly even pull down their street. There was like cop car after police car. And I was like, you know, what is going on? I'm trying to focus and I look down and I see yellow caution tape all around. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's their house. And there was a coroner's van. The garage door was up. And I just went running down the sidewalk yelling Blake's name.
At the house, she's met by the last person any mother wants to see, a homicide detective.
He stopped me at the end of the driveway and he started, you know, who are you? And I'm like, I'm Blake's mom. Where's my son? Where's he at? What hospital? Just tell me right now. And he just couldn't even look at me. And I go, don't tell me that. I go, just where's my baby? And he just shook his head and I just fell.
Sadly, inside the home, detectives find Chynna Dickus dead of multiple stab wounds. Not far away, young Blake has also been stabbed, beaten, and smothered.
Blake Dickus, in addition, received blunt force trauma and asphyxiation as a cause of death.
He had to be begging for his life, you know, and I wonder, was he asking for me? You know, I mean, what my child went through.
Cops wondered who could have perpetrated such a heinous and brutal attack. Suspicion immediately turned to the last person who saw Chynna and Blake alive, and the first person to find them dead, Sean Dickus.
He arrived home from work that day at approximately 14 minutes after 5, discovered their bodies in the home. There was no sign of forced entry to the home whatsoever. We took him down to the station where we could talk to him for a little bit.
But after extensive questioning, and even a polygraph test. Sean is officially cleared as the possible killer.
Sean cooperated with everything we asked him to do. He was at work, he was alibied, and he's just not a person of interest in the homicides.
I didn't fault anybody for that. I'm the one that found him, so, you know, fingers pointed at me, and I can understand that. Kind of made me withdraw into a shell a little bit, and it was very difficult.
You loved your family.
I did. And I do.
What happened that day when you went home?
I went home for lunch that day, and Blake was getting him excited about going home because he was going to go to the movies with his mom. And, you know, all I can remember is rubbing the back of his head and giving him a kiss and you know, tell him goodbye. I left the garage and pulled out, and Chynna was at the mailbox, and I gave her, you know, a kiss and said goodbye to her, and that's the last thing I remember.
Until, he says, he pulled into his garage that night, a moment he still has trouble talking about, and rightfully so.
I came home to a horror.
What did you see?
Well, I'm just gonna leave it at that. It was the worst thing imaginable, I can tell you that.
I'm quite sure no one who knows and loves Blake and Chynna ever thought they'd see them like this. Their faces plastered on a billboard after they'd both been murdered. But this is a reminder of what happened that day. But it's also a very bold and desperate plea for someone out there to do the right thing and help the cops catch their killer.
I don't know how somebody could do this and continue living with themselves. Why can't they come forward? Please. Our family needs justice.
For now, there are still no official suspects in the killings. But Crime Watch Daily is not about to let Blake's and Chynna's murders be forgotten, and neither are police.
We can tell you exactly who hasn't committed this crime. What we want to be able to tell you is who did.
Coming up, a surprise statement from a prison 1,000 miles away.
An individual had contacted us and wanted to confess to the homicides.
And authorities reveal shocking new details about home invasions, including one on the same day of the murders, on the same street.
At this point, we believe that we could very well solve the murder if we can solve these burglaries.